Who am I? First of all, I work at Seamless. I'm a software engineering manager. Apart from that, I'm an IT coach at Sagas. I collect some 3 or 4 characters long titles, whatever. You can find me at LinkedIn and Twitter. Feel free to comment my presentation. The reason I've been talking about DevOps is that at Seamless we had a chance to start building a DevOps team, and I would like to share our experience regarding this, what problems we faced, what problems we tried to solve, and I'm curious about your feedback. Maybe you also have that experience in your work. Okay, so I'd like to talk about 3 problems. First one is why do we need DevOps? This is a it's a buzzword nowadays. Everyone is talking about DevOps, just like people are talking about Scrum. Companies are hiring people saying that we are an Agile company, even though they don't. Also, people or companies say that, hey, we are doing DevOps stuff, and usually they don't as well. I'm telling you that we started doing DevOps stuff. Maybe it's also a buzzword nowadays. I wish you'd say. Okay, the second thing I would like to talk about is about symptoms of problems which DevOps may try to solve. Because this is not a silver bullet, just like Scrum is not a silver bullet, you have to understand in which context you should use or try using DevOps, or try implementing this ideology, culture in your organization. You have that much power. Third of all, how should you try implementing or building an environment which supports DevOps? This will be the third part of my speech, and I'll get back to this. But let's start with why do we need DevOps? Short movie for you. Hope you're gonna like it. So during my 8 years working in the IT industry, I had a chance to see many companies, either customers of the company I was working for, or customers at which I was a coach. And there are companies or Polish banks who make deployments twice a year. Does anyone of you think it's very infrequent to make deployments of a system twice a year? Okay, I think it's normal. All right, so then it's normal. The problem with doing deployments twice a year is that if you miss your development work, miss the release train, you have to wait another half a year to have it deployed in production. Usually this means that the company is paralyzed for like 2 weeks before the deployment because everyone is so stressed at the deployment. And it just happens. The other thing is that usually when you have like a deployment only once a year, once half a year, there is a discussion of stability versus throughput. On one hand, you are required to deliver new functionalities. On the other hand, the system needs to be stable. And this is pretty sad, I would say, because on the other hand, there are companies like Amazon which make a deployment every 12 seconds. So you get the point. One for 6 months and every 12 seconds. And they're goddamn good. First of all, deployment is like an ordinary procedure like any other task. No one is stressed about this. It happens every 12 seconds. It's just so goddamn fast. And that's the analogy I try to make. If you run a business and you make a deployment once a year and once every 6 months, then you won't make it. Come on. Today, business is not about being so stiff and so unable to change. So, slow motion for you, in case you missed it. For instance, in Formula 1, if there's a rain, the team who has the best engineering crew who is able to do the change of tires fast wins. And the same applies to business, I guess. I don't know what is your background, in which companies you work, at least in company at which I work, we do mobile payments. If our competition changes so fast, no one knows how to do mobile payments because there's no book about this. This is a disruptive technology and disruptive market. And we just We just need to be very reactive to what's happening on the market. And this is actually true that nowadays, awesome products are not only based on great ideas, but also on ability to change direction fast and introduce new ideas. If you don't have that much flexibility, if you don't do your deployments very fast, like Amazon every 12 seconds, for instance, or Facebook, you won't just stand the competition. And I'm not talking about ideology, all this philosophical stuff. I'm just talking about real business and being competitive. So we may argue what Scrum gives or what Agile gives, but the real fact is that the first bank which implemented Scrum, for instance, was able to deliver their products like twice faster than the other banks. So we can talk about philosophy, but here this is like real business. They're just faster. They're able to adapt to changing environment more fast and more flexible. Okay, so that was the first thing I wanted to talk. The second one is the symptoms of problems that can be solved by DevOps. Okay, the most obvious symptom at work is when people talk at work and they say we versus they. So for instance, they screw something up. We developed our solution, but they, the Sis Armies, the maintenance, they screw up the deployment. This is like the most obvious thing when you see it happening at your workplace, then most probably something is wrong with the organization of the work. And that's the most obvious symptom of something being wrong. If you dig down deeper, most probably it results in the fact that there's responsibility misalignment. The fact that you are saying we versus they usually comes from the fact that you versus those people, you just have different responsibilities. And this is usually your organization which imposes responsibilities. That's a pretty new story. I asked one person, is it deployed on staging? The other team. And the team replied to me, I don't think so, because we are not responsible for deployment. Come on. We are working in the same company. Our goal is to deliver a product which delights customers. So who cares who is responsible for deployment? All of us should care about doing the deployment. If you dig down deeper, maybe you will realize that the problem is handover. This is a handover. So when you pass one work, or you pass your work to some other party, can you name any handovers of your work which happen? When you have to pass your work to someone else? Okay. So before I give you examples of handover, the problem with them is that usually when you pass your work to someone else, is that you lose information, you lose context, and you lose clarity. For instance, you have a business analyst who writes requirements, and as a form of documentation, she or he puts it to the development team. For instance, the development team may pass it on to, when they do their job, pass it on to the test team. That's another handover. Test team can pass it to the deployment team, for instance. On every such step, there is a loss of information, loss of clarity, and loss of context. And actually, handovers, basically, they're bad. And think about your organization, maybe you work in one. I had a chance working in such an organization. There was a dev team, there was a test team, and there was a maintenance team. And they even introduced configuration management team. And the work was passed from development team to test team. Not change management. Change management or configuration management, whatever. Configuration management was figuring out, okay, how to deploy this in production. And the maintenance team was responsible for the maintenance of the production environment. What's the problem with that approach? Do you have any ideas?
They all have different goals and metrics.
Yeah, they have different goals, they have different metrics. Most probably there's no information flow backwards from the maintenance to the development team. So how can you expect people to do their job best if you create a system which is not optimized for delivery? And as you said, the problem is that first of all, most probably, or usually, people responsible for development, for testing, for configuration management, for maintenance, these are different people, different teams. What's more, they have different bosses. Those bosses impose different responsibilities and have most probably different motivation factors, different salaries, whatever. So the system basically is wrong, I would guess. And does any of you know of Edward Deming? Have any of you heard about this guy? He's dead, unfortunately. But anyway, as you can see. Anyway, he left USA in the 50s, I guess, went to Japan and helped their industry be built from scratch after the Second World War. Up to a point where Japanese cars were conquering the American market. And it was an American person who taught Japanese people how to organize their systems and how to build their systems to optimize for quality. He's the inventor of total quality management. You heard about this. And what he said, or one of his most famous quotes, is that 95% of all the problems in a company are caused by the management and not by the people. So if you create an organization which is not optimized for delivering value, for delivering quality, stability, it's not the people who you should blame. He also said that a bad system will beat a good person every time, which I agree with. He also said that usually the worker is not the problem, it is the problems at the top of the management. Who organizes the work? And having this perspective, especially when talking about handovers, please think about your place if the number of handovers is pretty huge. How are you expected to do your job well if you are not provided a system which allows you to do so? Is it the only problem with you then? Okay, let's move on. Another symptom of perhaps think which allows you or lets you think that you can use DevOps is this infrequent and low deployment. Why so? As I said, this Polish bank, they do deployments half a year, once like every 6 months. This is like, I know that first of all there's pressure on developers. If they miss the deadline, they have to wait another half a year. In the meantime, when they plan to do something, the competition, the other bank, can deploy a new product. And the time to react to this is 6 months. Come on, it's like, I don't know what kind of industry you're from and what kind of products you build, but waiting 6 months for reaction to business environment changing is like, you can already go bankrupt, for instance. If Nokia was like, I know when iPhone was developed, Nokia was still like doing ordinary phones, and smartphones were ruling the market, and no one could react, for instance. So, and the cure for infrequent and long deployments, and I agree with Just Humble, what he wrote in his book, but in IT, if something hurts, you should do it more often and bring the problem forward. Why is that? Because if you do it more often, usually you don't deploy like a big package of a system every 6 months, but you just do tiny deployments. So the delta is really small. The deployment is fairly small as well, and it doesn't become so painful. So I will get back to the statement later on. But making the pain visible and what hurts, and trying to do it more often usually causes that makes the pain less harmful to you, or even limitless. Okay. So I named the beast. Now the question is how to fight the beast. So what kind of environment should we create at work to support DevOps and to support or try to fight those problems I mentioned before? Okay. So because I'll be talking about our experience at Seamless, I would like to tell you how it all started. So historically, the company or the software engineering department or the way we deliver value is organized this way, where we have a dev team, or dev teams, we have a rollout team, and a DevOps team. If you try to visualize how those teams work, there are some walls between them. By walls, I mean the communication between those teams is not that obvious, it's not that easy or fluent. Dev teams are responsible, of course, for developing new functionalities, and their responsibility usually ends on dev environments. When given functionality enters staging, then it is taken over by the rollout team, which consists of QA people and ops people. Moreover, when the functionality enters production, it is governed by the ops team, so by the Sis Armies. You see where I'm going with this, right? We have at least 2 handovers which happen from the place where the actual value is created, which is the dev teams, up to a place when it is on production. And of course, it's all about people. If they're aware enough of the problems they face, they can communicate with each other. But generally, the system is constructed in a way which doesn't have it, because they are just different teams. Moreover, the work which is passed, or actually, sorry, the team, the dev team, have the one boss, and there is other boss for rollout team and ops team. And guess what? Dev team is being accounted for throughput. So how many items or how many new features the team is able to develop. And on the other hand, the ops team is accounted for stability of production systems. And very often, those goals are actually the fact that you have to choose between throughput and stability means that something is wrong with the system. Yeah, that's before. And at some point in time, intentionally or unintentionally, there was a decision to create another team in the organization whose goal was to deliver, because the main team or the core teams, they were responsible for the core product. The new team was responsible for services built on top of the core product. And as I said, I don't remember if it was intentional or not, but anyway, those teams couldn't get a rollout team responsible for the deployments, which is quite a funny story, because if suddenly the team was not provided a rollout team, then they had to take care of everything on their own. So they got the business requirement, they had to make a design, they had to implement it, test it, deploy it, and maintain it in production. So suddenly this awkward limitation, or maybe natural to most of us, that there is this phases of work we have to do, suddenly one team was responsible for this. And actually that was a blessing for us. Although unintentional it is. So this new team emerged and was responsible, as I said, for end-to-end stuff. So we started working because we were missing. The team consisted of 4 developers and the team lead. The team were missing or was missing Sis Admin skills. They were just, there were no Linux experts, no Sis Armies among of us, no specialists regarding security, network, just pure developers. So the decision was that the team started working on Amazon Web Services, Elastic Beanstalk. Does anyone know something about Elastic Beanstalk? Anyway, it hides problems for developers regarding infrastructure and deployment, because you just take a WAR file with your web application and just tell Amazon to deploy it on Tomcat, and Amazon takes care of everything. Scaling, network infrastructure, network infrastructure, scaling, security, scaling up and down. So we didn't need that much of ops at that moment, but eventually we started to feel a need of that, because it's bad when developers do the infrastructure job. So the question was, and of course, the idea was to do it DevOps way, because we read about it, how to do it on Facebook and Twitter and Netflix, and we wanted to try it as well. So the thing is, how to try to find an ops guy in the team, especially that our boss was a person responsible for the development silo, and the ops guy was from the silo for which the owner of the ops silo was responsible. So you can do it two ways. First one, do it the front-ended way. Have any of you didn't watch or haven't watched House of Cards? No. Okay, so most of you know front-ended. So you could either do it his way, but we are not that kind of organization, hopefully. Or you could try to do it the other way. As I say, we work Agile, and we try to do it, using our values. So first of all, there's nothing wrong to start asking for help. Just saying, okay, we need an ops guy because, we just need someone professional who takes care of our development environments, and our production environments as well. Because we are just missing these skills in our team. And we just need those skills to be more effective. Of course, we can learn all the infrastructure stuff, but it would take us, I don't know, a year or something. Once that person started helping us, we tried to engage that person into stuff we did. It wasn't just a serviceman who popped up and tried to set up the infrastructure. We tried to engage him into business stuff we were doing. Because eventually, we as a company have one common goal, which is like delivering or delighting our customers. Also empowering that person, saying that, okay, you're the expert, you can do whatever you want, because you know best, is like another way of trying to engage those kind of people into our team. And eventually, one of the biggest Agile values is to make your needs and work transparent. So we are not playing any games, we are not doing politics within the company. We're just saying, okay, this is how we work, this is what we can deliver, and this is the value you get. And actually, talking about values, I will get back to this later on, but you just have to make the values the company gets out of this setup, when you have developers and ops working together, should be transparent for a company to make a better decision. They can actually transform it into some real values, economical values. Pretty simple. So, when we engage an ops guy into our team, it apparently, it appeared that first of all, this person is engaged into our stuff around 60 or 80% of his time. So it became pretty apparent that context switching for that person is pointless. I don't know if you have to context switch a lot at your work, but I guess doing 3 or 4 things at a time is pretty painful. It's not like you can do 4 things at a time and just context switch between stuff without any loss of your time. So we started talking with the ops silo manager, whatever we call him. But hey, this guy is spending like 60 or 80% of his time. Why not? He shouldn't be with us and just because even if he gets back to his ordinary work, he's there like for 10% maybe, right? If they feel this context switching problem. And what we promised and actually proved is that we are responsible for the full deployment and maintenance of the stuff we built. So we didn't say, okay, we would like to have ops person who will help us set up the production environment, but if there is a bug on the production, the maintenance team will take care of this. And it was like a promise made to ops silo manager, but this is like a transaction, right? There is a person inside our team, but we take care of it, including the bugs from the production. And when people start counting, it becomes for them pretty obvious that this is a good deal, by the way. And I think this is a win-win situation for all of us. For the team and also for the ops silo manager, that the person, that he just don't have any problems. And actually, this is how it all happened, but we started deploying stuff without engaging a rollout team. We started we started taking care of the bugs, so that also people from the ops team were involved in this. But this means, of course, responsibility for us. And of course, even developers need a hero, which is an ops guy in this team. And the decision was made that ops person joins the team. So he was treated like a king initially. Yeah. Let's move on. Till that time, by the way, that's his day. So he can, at any point, at any time of my speech, he can stand up and say bullshit. Okay, so anyway, initially we started like 4 people, 1 ops. We grew up to more or less 10 people with more or less the same setup. But there are some problems. Especially, I don't know how it's in other companies, in other DevOps companies, but the problem is that usually the most common, sorry for talking about people resources, I don't like it, but maybe now it's a good context. The most common resource is developers, and skills you miss is ops people or QA people. They are usually a minority. And when you invite an ops person to a team, to an Agile Scrum team, the problem usually you face initially is, or when I look at ops people, is that I doubt if they are product oriented. They are mostly task oriented. If you look how Sis Armies work, they usually have a list of tasks that they just take the task from the top and just try to make it as fast as possible and just take another task and so on. Usually this system is governed by the, I don't know, ops manager, or at best, this is a Kanban process. But anyway, being product oriented requires some different kind of skills or different kind of background. It's good to have, right? So that's the first problem I guess ops people will have when joining development teams, development Scrum teams. The second problem they may have is communication skills, because as you know, Scrum heavily relies on communication within the team, with the stakeholders, with the product owner, and within the team. And very often the work of Sis Armies is organized in a way that people are solving the problems or doing the tasks alone. Unlike developers who usually work in a team and have the communication skills much more developed. So as I said, the Sis Armies usually they come from a systems which hasn't helped them that much to work in a team, I would guess. And it heavily relies on a person, on a given person, features of characters and some being aware, on how she or he will fit up into the new setup. As I said, working in Scrum, usually it's something really new for ops teams. If you read about, I don't know what's your experience, of course, but usually if you hear about ops doing some Agile or Lean stuff, usually they work in Kanban or Scrum, because they just don't need Scrum. They usually don't feel the responsibility like for the product from the beginning to the end. They are more like responsible for the product at the end of the process, which is deployment and maintenance. And here you start thinking about the product like overall, which Scrum is all about like this. And the fourth thing is that when you try to think about people suitable, especially ops, for a DevOps setup, it's good when that person has a diversified experience. Our ops guy, he is a Python developer at the same time, so he feels what development is all about. He also is engaged in developing some products after work, so we've been lucky, by the way, to have a person with diversified experience. And actually, you should search for those people when you set up DevOps teams. Although, on the other hand, Jess Humble, the guy I mentioned before, said, and I agree with him, that you shouldn't search for particular skills. You should just create an environment for those people to flourish. So you can, this is just like, Scala developers, right? You can try to search one, or you can just hire a Java developer and teach him in Scala. And I guess this applies also to DevOps setup. If you search for personal skills, for some particular skills or experience, just create a certain environment for that people, empower them to just do stuff you want them to do. because otherwise maybe you won't find the person. Okay. Now the outcomes of the experiment we did, and we continue. I will talk basically about 3 outcomes. First one will be technological outcomes. Second one will be business outcomes, and third one will be cultural outcomes. But let me focus on the first one, technical stuff. So as soon as the ops person joined us and we started working the DevOps way, which is not only just having a setup of developers and ops, I will talk about it later on, suddenly lots of stuff improved. First of all, eventually, usually developers don't think about it that way because they don't have access to the production environment. We implemented proactive monitoring. What does it mean? That we try to anticipate errors and problems in production already in the development and not wait until the customer calls us. Because if the customer calls us, usually it's late. So, I don't know, simple stuff like if you have a RESTful interface, you will just expose ping method and have an Agile to call this ping method once a minute so that you know that the environment is working. It's that simple stuff to some more advanced things. The second thing was that because we have a multi-instance environment, so it will be pretty stupid if there is an error to try to log on every machine and try to check the logs to find on which machine the given request was served. It's better to have like one place where all the logs are accumulated from all the machines and you can browse it there. And for instance, it was Logstash and Kibana which was chosen for those of you who know the technologies. The cool stuff actually we did was the automated infrastructure. Because as you remember, we tried to optimize the deployment time or make it as little painful as possible. So trying to automate everything which can be automated is the right direction. And in case of Amazon, we were able to do this. What we did, we used a service called CloudFormation. It is a service in which, or thanks to which, you can automatically create the whole production setup, which is like we created, I don't know, multiple instances with distributed database, with load balancing, with some security groups, etc. And due to this, we are also able to have staging environments looking the same as production environment. It then appeared like pretty obvious to us that by having mirror environments, we are able to find some problems before they enter production because of having diverse environments. I don't know how many times you had this problem when only certain problems they appeared only on production. I don't know. It's for me, especially my previous job, they happen frequently, really frequently. Here, by having everything automated, where you don't have to put effort into doing this stuff and have like scripts doing this everything for you, it's way simpler. But this is not the end. The next thing we did or are doing is continuous deployment. So I don't know also how much time you spend on deployment, but if it's long, like in case of the banks, for instance, or the bank I mentioned, it takes them like two weeks, for instance, in case of deployment which happens every 6 months. We are trying to make, or succeeded in doing the continuous deployment by some scripting using Python and Bash, where the deployment is almost fully automatic. What does it mean? It means that first of all, you can do the deployment at any time. You don't have to wait till night, for instance. That's, by the way, a result of another thing, which is blue-green deployment. Have anything heard? Have anyone heard about this? Green-blue deployment or blue-green deployment is a way of deploying environments in which create an exact mirror of production environments. Only some users, trusted users, are directed to the new environment, and they test the new functionality. And when everything is fine, you just redirect all the traffic to the new environment. And this can happen during the day with almost no downtime for the end users. And if something even breaks on the new production environment, you can always redirect the whole traffic to the old system. And then fix the new production in case of failure. And it also, by the fact that we as a team were responsible for the whole end-to-end process, with certain skills and certain mindset in the team, I used to be a developer, we as developers, we started thinking far ahead than the boundary of our environment, which was dev environment, because we're also responsible for production. And by this setup, we could, by working with code of our application, could make it prepare for such a deployment, for instance. And that was pretty neat. And what is more, something maybe less obvious, is that eventually developers were more involved in dev, QA, infra. By the way, by saying developers, I mean developers and QS as a development team. But anyway, there is more and more dev and QA and infrastructure and ops discussions. And it results in a cool stuff, which is like we have two developers here, as you can see, a QA guy and an ops guy, and they have some skills. And by the fact that they are in one team, of course, QA will never be a software developer, ops will never be a software developer, and the other way around. But at least they become more aware of other stuff which is required. And I would guess that, at least in case of our company, I would say the skills which are required to build great products and understand what our customers need is, apart from purely technical stuff, which is dev, QA, and ops, there's also user experience, and there's also business understanding of what we're doing. But anyway, by being in one team, by all the discussion, by solving all those problems which are far ahead from purely development tasks, but also infrastructure tasks, maintenance tasks, suddenly skills of those people, some of them, they are just improving. Of course, don't expect, QA to be a programmer or developer to be an ops person, but the more they know, the better. And actually, more and more discussion in the Agile world is towards not hiring rockstar developers, but hiring T-shaped people. By saying T, I mean that they have solid foundation and they have one area of expertise. And actually, by helping them improve in different areas, you just actually stop thinking about people as QA, dev, or ops, but just think about them as product developers. Which is kind of a nice notion, which I personally like and approve of. But I wouldn't like to think that one person is a QA or the other is a developer, just a product developer, because we're a product company and we're developing the product. That's it. Okay. The other thing which was pretty interesting in the way we tried to organize this, especially in a setup where we have majority of developers and minority of QA people and ops people, is system thinking and strategic actions. If there is an ops person among developers, system should be created in a way in which ops person is somehow a coach for developers regarding basic ops stuff. The same goes for QA people, that they should be coaches for developers in basic QA stuff. So that the developer team, which is in majority, can offload QA and ops from daily routines and help them focus on strategic stuff. For example, one of the anti-patterns of doing DevOps is, by the way, getting ops to a team and let him do everything connected with infrastructure. So he's like a servant or like a slave for the dev team, which is really bad. What should be done, on contrary, and which we try to do it, is like the developers, for instance, have access to production environment. That's perfectly fine. They can restart the production environment, they can access the log, they can change the database. They don't need to go to ops person to figure out those issues. What does it mean? Ops person, which is in minority, have time for doing strategic stuff. Like, for instance, automation of infrastructure, which we, by the way, you did, right? And helping or creating an environment for ops people and for QA people to think about strategic stuff is actually, I think, the most what you can get from this team. Because if you have like 4 or 5 developers, they're just in majority. They should broaden their horizons on stuff different than development things. Just do the operational stuff and help those people think about the problems more strategically and let them system think. Okay. What about outcomes for the business? So business people like to measure things, and if you can measure something, then you can gather it. And you have to be able, especially if you would like to set up a DevOps team in your organization, you have to be able to convince business people to have a go-ahead for this. And usually the measures you can present to them is, first of all, deployment frequency. You have to remember that deployment frequency means that the more frequent you do your deployments, the more occasions you have to change direction of your business when something happens in your business environment. So if you do a deployment twice a year, then you have only 2 occasions to change your business or change the direction of your business. If you do it like we can do deployments every 2 weeks, for instance, now. It only depends on the product management if they wish to make these deployments every 2 weeks. But it's up to them. They have the ability to have this frequency, and even now after implementing the continuous deployment, I think we are able to do it even faster. It's only up to, it's good if business have this opportunity, they don't have to take advantage of this, but it's just good for them to have this freedom in changing directions. Lead time for changes. It basically comes from the high value of deployment frequency. Very often we had these discussions that, okay, CEO or product management came up with an idea, and we were able to implement this idea in a basic form in 2 weeks and hit the production of it and check against real customers if the idea we developed got a grip, got friction. And if you tell business that once they pop up with idea, they can get up a basic functionality in, for instance, 2 weeks or a month to have it in production with real customers, I think they would be delighted. Mean time to recover from failure. By automation, by proactive monitoring, by automated logging and reacting to those logs, if something breaks, the faster you react, the better. I mean, the worst thing you can do is to wait until your customer clicks in your web application and says that it's not working. The best thing would be to have it checked in a way that you know it before your customers and you are able to react. And actually, not that far ago, because we are building services on top of the core system, and the SSL certificate was updated in the core system. And one of our applications crashed because it couldn't verify SSL chain correctly. And we learned about this once it was changed in the core system, so beyond our influence. We learned about this fact around 10 minutes after it happened, and we're able to react in 5 minutes. So it was like 15 minutes from the failure to the repair. So one or two customers were influenced by this, because unfortunately it was them who clicked into the app in this case, unfortunately. But anyway, 15 minutes, come on. It's really good time. Okay, so these were the measures. We can try to talk to business people and convince them about this. The next thing, because of the setup we have, we were able to start working the Lean Startup way. Does any of you know what Lean Startup is? Okay, 2 people, cool. Now I will simplify it a lot, because there's much more behind Lean Startup than what I'm going to tell you about this now. But anyway, one of the key concepts of Lean Startup is MVP, which is minimum viable product. When building products, you can either think about your product, design the functionalities, develop it for 5 months, deploy it to production to real customers to learn that they don't like it, right? So you wasted like 6 months of your time. One of the most fancy examples is if you want to produce helmets for hamsters, you can either invest in the factory and start producing helmets for the hamsters and check if people like it, or you can just create a website called helmetsforhamsters.com and check how many people signed for your newsletter and collect feedback. And you can invest in the website like, I don't know, $1,000 to learn that there is no need for helmets for hamsters. And you just saved like several $100,000 for not building a factory. This is the kind of MVP thinking. And what we did, by the way, what I can say about this next slide. Yes, so basically, if you think about traditional product development, you can spend like 5 months on designing the functionality, developing it, putting it on production, and measuring if customers like it. If they don't, which is highly probable, you're going to lose like half a year. Or you can try building MVPs. So try to think about devoting as little time as possible to learn if it is worth to invest more time into developing your product. And usually people fail in their ideas, and we fail also a lot, I would say. But the key thing is that you lose like 2 weeks of your work and not 5 months. And you have time to pivot. You can try another MVP and try to take this approach. And if it also fails, maybe for the third time, you will succeed and then continue working on the project. And actually, one of the stuff we did for MVP was we're building a system for our customers, an e-commerce system, for them to allow to buy things directly from, I don't know, advertisements, posters, whatever. And what we did, we developed the application in like 2 or 3 weeks. And the application from the customer perspective was perfectly fine. It was working, you could click on it, you could buy something. And we did it in 3 weeks, put it on production. But the key thing is that the back office system for entering campaigns, there was none. No back office system. We were entering the campaigns via SQL injects to the database because we just didn't want to waste time on creating back office on something which maybe is not, maybe our customers won't like it. And because it was us who were entering the campaigns to the system, so we know SQL, we can do it. But our customers, they need to have a fancy solution. And we deployed it to production, and actually it appeared to be a success. So it was a sign for us that we should go ahead and invest our time into developing more fancy mechanisms under the hood. And if you don't have a DevOps team which is able to develop it this fast, so automate the whole process, so that there's not that much time spent on the project overhead, there's not that much time spent on deployment, then you can really focus on delivering value, which is developing the whole solution. And the more you have automated stuff underway, the less time you spend on it, so out of this 2-week sprint you can squeeze even more time spent on delivering value. And this is how DevOps setup helped us to try to go along the Lean Startup route. And yeah, in this basic form, of course. Okay, moving forward, if you read the 2013 DevOps report, you learn that high-performing companies, they respect their IT, the time of IT department. They don't make decisions without consulting them about this. So I don't know if you see where I'm going, but I'm talking about the partnership between IT and business. So they come, and we, like for instance, in the case of our team, we experience it a lot because they contact us whenever there is a new business feature to be developed and discuss with us, okay, what are the boundaries of MVP, how can we schedule this with respect to other products and all that stuff. And they try to respect our time. Of course, it doesn't always happen because there is a CEO, there are investors, something is needed by the market, and something just needs to be done. But at least they are aware of this, and they contact us and ask about this. And even if we disagree about doing this, they just feel sorry, which is a lot of this. Okay. And the most important thing, or my favorite one, is the culture of work. Without which actually DevOps will be just treated just by, it's all about teams of developers and ops, which is actually not true. So the culture thing. What is culture? According to some definitions, this is a sum of behaviors of all people, their actions, reactions to other actions, all that stuff. But generally, it's behavior. And the key thing about behavior is that what drives behavior in an organization, behavior of people, are actually the limitations the organizations impose on people. And if you think about the original setup we had, it was unintentional, I guess, but by the fact that there was another team which was like created out of the main process, which is like dev teams being responsible for dev environment, rollout team being responsible for ops environment, for staging environment, the ops team being responsible for production environment. The new team which emerged, those limitations were gone. So you could actually observe different kind of behaviors because of different limitations and different kind of culture. So what actually happened? There was a culture bubble in the company, and it could actually be visible, I guess, in both positive and negative ways. Culture bubble or culture pocket. This is an idea coined by Dave Snowden, one of the most famous guys regarding examination of cultures in organizations. Not the one Snowden held in Moscow or wherever he is, but Dave Snowden. His company is called cognitive.com. It sounds like an advertisement. But anyway, by different limitations imposed on the team, the culture just was different. Not worse, not better, but different. And I guess it was pretty visible inside the company. Also the way that because of lack of those limitations, this team was able to deliver faster than the core teams. Of course, on technical side, we are doing much simpler stuff, but I will get back to this, than the core teams. But anyway, a culture bubble was created. And the thing about culture bubble is that it is fragile. Why is it so? First of all, you are in minority in the company. So there is a majority which, if they don't like you, they may destroy your culture bubble. Or they can be a manager which destroys this culture bubble. And the threats to your culture bubble may come from different directions. The first threat, for instance, was one ops person in our team, we started to feel that it's not enough. And ops silo manager approached us and asked about, okay, we can give you another ops person, but for 50% of the time. So suddenly we are working as two Scrum teams. On the other hand, we are a DevOps team, and suddenly we can have an ops person for half of the time. This is a very tempting proposition, but we refused. Because we are either a team, or there is no such a person like being involved in 50% of the time. So we refused this offer and tried to think about how we can handle the problem of ops person, of too much work for one ops person. The other thing was that because of those limitations imposed on the backend teams or on the core teams, the other teams who were in different culture, they just didn't like us that much. I would say. Or actually, they were paying attention to the fact that we are saying us and they. I mean, us about our team, and they about the backend team. But they didn't, for instance, see that because they have also teams, they were also saying about their teams as us and they. But suddenly, because of this change of limitations and change of culture, we were just, people were not that fond of the new culture which was originated. And the other threat for our team was that those teams started questioning if we really should start working on services which are built on top of the core system, if we can't start working on the bugs in the core system. And at least me, I have even though we have a bit separate team with a bit separate culture, I still think that the goal of the company is most important. But by such suggestions, your culture bubble may be destroyed. And suddenly, something which works in a micro scale may stop working because we suddenly will be involved in the bucket stuff. And this is not about being lazy or not working on the product as a whole, because the product consists of most important thing, which is the core part, which we are not developing, and the stuff built on top. But the experiment and the thing we were building was just destroyed by this. So that's why culture bubble is fragile. And being able to sustain a culture bubble, I think, is one of the most important things for a manager who decided to make this experiment. But the stake was even higher than just creating the team. So, yeah. The stake was, or is, try to rearrange the whole organization, that there is no culture or bubble of DevOps, but there is a DevOps in the whole organization. To help the teams in the core system to also try to work this way, to remove these unnecessary handovers, to remove those limitations which actually, in my opinion at least, cause frustration to those people. And to do that, there needs to be some success story. I haven't heard about the company going through Agile transformation, successful Agile transformation, just by philosophical discussions about what Agile is. Either someone had to have balls to do the transformation in the whole company, or someone had to do a test transformation on some team and try to build an example on that team. And actually, our setup was pretty cool because the things we were developing in the services built on top, they are really simple in comparison to the backend stuff. So this is a perfect candidate for doing an experiment of a concept which DevOps is, and trying to make it as a success story. And the key thing is it's all about change management. And there are conferences about change management, and I could talk about this for 3 weeks probably. But if you would like to impose a change and change the system, which you believe is better, with no handovers, no fake or misaligned proper responsibilities, then you have to start with something. So it's better to start with something simple. It's better to succeed in this. And it's important to make other people in the company aware that this is not because of just putting an ops person into the development team, but it's all about reorganization of the whole company and proper culture. So it's a disclaimer for people making decisions in our company, but also a disclaimer for you regarding any topic on any conference. I experience it a lot. From time to time I speak at conferences and people approach me and they talk and they ask me about certain tools we did. And this is a very bad direction because it is not the tools which work, but ideas which work. Tools work in a certain context. So for instance, you could, after my speech, if you like it, if you like the concept I'm telling you about, you could just throw an ops person into your team. and just think that the magic will happen. That is not true. Most probably you will end up in a setup where ops person will be a slave to developers and doing infrastructure stuff. But there will be no communication between those people. There will be no building more knowledge and experience regarding the missing skills. There will be no thinking about, okay, we are doing our development part and we may be working on also how it works in production, how easy it is to deploy. So there's a threat on using this tool. You could, for instance, say, okay, I heard about a company which is using Amazon Web Services and they are able to deploy this really fast. Okay, but it works for us in a given context. It may not work in your company. You could say that we should destroy specialized teams and say that, okay, let's mix ops people and developers and create teams. And I also disagree on this because I didn't tell you that there should be DevOps teams responsible for the delivering value, but for sure there should be teams responsible for the infrastructure just to see the general problems which happen with the system and just react accordingly. But the key thing is communication and the same responsibility. And you can just say that developers should do infrastructure, as some people understand DevOps, but that's not true because developers are just missing their skills and they never will be Sis Armies. But developers can do some operational, everyday stuff. So, if not copying tools, maybe it's better to understand ideas behind DevOps and try to copy them. One of the ideas, limit handovers. It's very tempting in companies to have silos of developers, ops, and all that stuff because it seems to be easier to manage because you have silo manager and have different responsibilities. But does it really, is it an organization optimized for delivering value? I doubt it. The other thing is, by limiting handovers, you have the proper information flow, especially about what happens in production. Very often in many companies, developers of the system, they don't have access to production, don't have access to data on production, and what bugs there are on production, because there is, for instance, a maintenance team. So how come they can create better systems if they don't have a feedback from what's happening on the production side to the full customers? We just don't allow those people to learn from their mistakes. The other thing is high trust. I believe that people are experts in what they do. And even if they are not, they will become experts. So there has to be trust, like for instance, developers having access to production environment. Of course, people can erase database, production database. That's the risk you have to see. The other thing is, because this is a change most probably, you have to make it safe. You have to make it safe to fail for those people and let them learn from the failures. There's no, if it's not safe to fail, if it's not safe to try, then how are we supposed to improve? Maybe there are some experts like this, but the question is if your company is able to hire those experts, and are those experts in your city? So the other alternative is to make it safe to fail for people and help them learn. That's pretty important. People can choose their tools because they are the experts and they know best what should be used. Of course, they may have their own perspective. There may be some other perspective, like a given tool can be expensive, or if most of our systems are written in Java and we'd like to do it in Ruby on Rails, then did you think about hiring those people and what problem it may impose on the company to find those people? Or I don't know, Haskell or Erlang, I guess. You can find only 5 people which they're developing Haskell, for instance. And once I made a mistake, there was a big discussion between if we should use Maven or
Radle.
Yeah, cool. And I opposed the change. And after 2 months after that, I was reminded that I opposed the change and I didn't let the experts to choose the tool they wanted. So don't mess with those guys. Another thing, empower people. This is only, if you're, I don't know what is your experience, but I guess most of you have pretty sad experience from from work, or this is at least what I hear from people I meet, that people just don't feel empowered in their companies. So how they can change the company, how they can optimize the flow of value if they are not empowered. And of course, there's lots of motivation books about this, like by Pink, and I guess everyone feels it. And automate painful things. And I do believe in this. If something is painful, I think you should do it more often, not less often. Because the painful you get at the amount of time just becomes less. And it's just much easier to try to automate this stuff. So, I hope you learned something from my speech. And I'm open to questions.